Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
In the military, veterans answer the call to serve. Now it's our turn. At Hire Heroes USA, they're changing lives, helping veterans and military spouses secure meaningful careers, all at no cost.
With over 100,000 success stories and counting nationwide, they're connecting skilled veterans with employers who recognize their true value. Visit hireheroesusa.org to access their services or to support their mission.
Real people making bold moves. Unforgettable journeys into life's next chapter. This is the Second Act Podcast.
Every day is a new chance. Mindset on a new path. Anything is possible. Any limit I surpass. Everything is in my grasp. I got tunnel vision with a pickaxe. Life is more fun when you live like there's no strings attached.
I'm going to kick it off with our welcoming back to the Second Act Podcast. Hello, everyone. This is just going to be Michael today. John is actually en route to the great Midwest, so he will not be joining this conversation today. So he has instilled in me the confidence to run with this conversation, and I'm thankful for his willingness to allow me to do this. Hopefully I live up to his standards. I know they are high as a 20-year veteran of the Marine Corps. So today, we are excited to welcome Jordon Allard to the show. Jordon is an entrepreneur passionate about improving the lives of older adults. After earning her master's in occupational therapy from University of Missouri, Columbia, she gained extensive experience in rehabilitation and quality assurance, developing the expertise and vision to launch Aspire Therapy and Wellness in 2020. Built on values of integrity, quality care, collaboration, professionalism, and positivity, Aspire offers senior living communities a personalized, high-quality alternative to large therapy providers. Under Jordon's leadership, the company formed selective partnerships focused on personalized attention and results-driven care, setting a new standard for therapy and wellness in the senior living industry. Guided by the belief that you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I love that. She channels her passion for organization and optimization into every aspect of her business. This forward-thinking approach continues to empower her team to deliver exceptional care and positively impact the lives of older adults, helping them live their best lives through a fresh, compassionate approach to therapy. Welcome to the show, Jordon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I love what you do as a profession. I'm always curious and fascinated by not just the work that happens in this demographic, but also maybe some of the stories you hear during your work. I'm sure there's plenty of incredible stories that are shared with you as you are helping them right-size their bodies, for lack of a better expression. But before we get into some of the stories, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your journey, maybe starting with where you grew up and a little bit about some of the influential moments of your life that helped lead you into this area of work.
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned the Midwest. I'm actually from the Midwest. I'm from suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri. Suburbs of St. Louis. I grew up there in the same home until I went off to college at the University of Missouri. I was 22 years old when I graduated from my master's. I had also met my husband. We met as undergraduates
Okay.
at the University of Missouri. My husband's extremely smart. He's great. He wanted to continue pursuing his PhD.
Wow.
So we moved from Missouri to Colorado.
Okay.
So we live in the Boulder area now, Boulder, Colorado. He got his PhD at the University of Colorado in
All
Boulder.
right, go Buffs.
Yeah, go Buffs. So yeah, really my most influential person, I would say, is my dad. My dad is someone I feel like who has shaped me as a person and instilled the values in me that I really strive to uphold in not just my personal life, but also business. So my dad, he is retired carpenter. He's extremely hardworking. If anyone listening to this is from St. Louis, this will resonate with them because he, is blue collar, hardworking carpenter, but then he also played hockey and he's
Okay.
66 years old and he still gets together
Wow.
the same team. Like it's been over 40 years that the same team in Florissant, Missouri has been getting together. So I just remember as a young girl at like, 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, if I would get out of bed and I would see the light underneath my door and I would go out just to tell my dad, have a good day at work. And he'd be in his long underwear. It would be freezing. Like the winters in Colorado are like nothing compared to the winters in Missouri. Like they're like next level. And, it was still dark, and I just remember thinking as a kid, like, "You work so hard." And the jobs that he would work on, like, the conditions were just yeah, like, physically really demanding. But the thing about my dad is although he worked really hard, he never worked too much. So he was always the dad that was there for all of my games. He would take me to my practices. He always put family first. And he had the opportunity to move up in his career. And for a very short period of time, he did that. And he missed a couple of my soccer tournaments. And very quickly, he was like, I don't want to do that. And so we did not have like the nicest things. Like my dad always drove a car that was like over 10 years old. And like we had, it was like a pretty typical like suburb upbringing, but like the fancy cars and the clothes and all of that, like none of that mattered to him. And what mattered really was like his family and the community. And through sports and those learning lessons of, yeah, like you're trying something new, you're not doing well at it. He was the dad that would like spend hours with me outside trying to learn how to throw a softball and, refining my soccer kick. And so as a not just a kid, because as like I moved into being, into high school and through college, like he was always that person that if I was struggling with something, that he was truly my coach, like my coach and my dad. And as I have moved into, having my own family, because now I'm a mother of two toddlers and trying to balance a career and like you could always work more. You could always do these things. I come back to those values and those principles. And truly, at the end of the day, like it's not the cars, it's not the clothes, it's not those things. It's how you show up for your family.
I love everything you just said, and I know that in many people's life journeys, they come to some of those realizations a little bit too late, and it's unfortunate those circumstances because they maybe would live a different life had they had known some things earlier. But coming to that realization sooner, whether on your own or through what you experienced with your family and with your dad, probably has helped shape how you are with your own family. And all the stuff that you talked about, like the fancy stuff, really doesn't matter at all. We had a guest on not too long ago who has written a book called Things That Matter. And it's a really wonderful read. I think it's done really well because it talks more about all the things that you described. The mindfulness with your family and having a strong work ethic, but not working so much that your life is totally out of balance. And it's hard, right? The pendulum doesn't like stop in the middle. But I think it's just having the awareness of when the pendulum swings too far in one direction to make some adjustments. And there's a lot of stuff I would give up to have more time with my family. I've learned over the years, and I'm in my 40s now. Yeah, the things that matter are really right in front of you. So I love that you've shared that with our audience. Thank you, Jordon.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I was growing up, I remember feeling a little bit embarrassed at times, like, oh, okay, like this car that my dad's picking me up in, or like, just like comparing.
Sure.
But like now, as an adult on the other side, like, of course, like I never think back on like, oh, I really wish my dad would have picked me up in like a BMW. If anything, I admire that he can have that gratitude of being just like unapologetically like, this is the decision that I make. Like, I'm gonna live, at my means or below my means, so then I can show up for her in all of the other ways and my family in the other ways. So I definitely appreciate it now more than I
Sure.
did as like a teen.
Oh, yeah. And when you're a kid, and you start to become aware of the things, it's like, oh, yeah, that person has the fancy car, the fancy house, or the fancy this and that. And it's exaggerated quite a bit today with social media,
Yeah.
where you're 24/7 getting fed, the consumer culture and comparing everything all the time. So it's good to disconnect from that stuff. But what matters more, I think, with what you said is that he was there, not how he got there.
Mhm.
So the strong work ethic was instilled in you from a young age, getting up early, working hard, but, being aware of where he needed to be with what was most important to him. How did that help shape your career decisions early on and what you started to venture into?
Yeah, I would say I always knew that I wanted to help people. Like, that was going to be the path that I took. And I felt like it was going to be in healthcare. Like, I just gravitated towards doing something in like the service in the healthcare industry, which is kind of ironic because my dad and my mom are not in healthcare. I have an older sister who is a nurse, and then I have an older brother who is a nurse anesthetist, and then I myself am an OT. So I don't really know like how all three of us ended up in healthcare with our parents not at all. But I knew that that was the path that I wanted to take. I just didn't know exactly, like, what profession that looked like. So I just shadowed, like,
Hmm.
and that was, the advice of my dad. He was
Okay.
like, "You should just go and see if you can shadow a bunch of different type of healthcare professionals and see what you like and what you don't like." So, I shadowed a dental hygienist, a sonographer, a nurse, occupational therapist, and then I looked at the curriculum and I'm like, looked at the OT one and I'm like, I think I can do this. Um, so and I really loved the way that OT helped people. Like it was really unique in the way that occupational therapy can impact someone's life and the versatility of just areas of practice that we can go into. And so that just kind of led me on my journey was just shadowing.
Yeah, I'm being in my mid 40s now. I know how things start to creak and hurt in ways that you never thought they could, and I imagine it only becomes more of a problem as you get older. And I've been athletic all my life, and so the wear and tear on your body and those sorts of things, I'm sure, is not helping the situation. But a friend of mine works with someone who says motion is lotion. So the
Yep.
more you're sort of moving around, the better off you are. Not maybe really strenuous type of stuff, but just staying active.
Oh
And
gosh, it's so true. I mean, so I broke my toe in a soccer game like 4 weeks ago,
oh no.
and is my big toe, and so I have, like, not been moving it, and it's amazing. Like, just one small joint, it's been immobilized, not moving a whole lot, like, how stiff and just it affects your whole body. Like, it really does. So you're like, that's spot on, and that's what we preach a lot of times to the older adults because sometimes like their motivation just isn't there. They can be socially isolated, but really just encouraging that movement,
Uh-huh.
it really does go a long way. And, one thing that I really love about OT, if no one has experienced or known someone that has experienced OT, our name does not do us justice at all. Like, it is just so confusing, and it's like, what is occupational therapy, right? Like, I don't need a job. So, yeah, like, if you've experienced it or you've known someone, you've probably come to really appreciate it because most of what we focus on are our basic activities of daily living. So that's like, the dressing, the feeding, the bathing, grooming, things that you and I don't think about on a daily basis at all. They're just second nature until something happens.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like these very basic activities you're having difficulty with, or maybe you need to do them in a different modified way. And so it's a really powerful profession in you're really helping someone do the things that on a very basic, like self-care level, all the way up into like a meaningful occupation. That's where the term comes from. It's anything meaningful that occupies our time. We use those meaningful occupations as rehab to help it be therapeutic.
It's funny how we take the daily activities for granted up until we can't use them anymore. You reminded me of a period of time I was snowboarding as a late teenager, early 20 something, and I broke my arm and I had to wear a cast for like 6 or 8 weeks. And showering was a real pain
Yeah.
in the butt. And I remember vividly to this day when I got my cast off and how much I appreciated just being able to take a normal shower again
Well,
and that feeling. And it probably has helped me in some ways as a reminder of all the little things that we just do each and every day that we go through life and you sort of have to do, like cooking, walking around, getting in the car, like just little things, going up the stairs.
yep.
And it's so important to do your best to make, the right decisions for yourself and your body. And, I started off with, the stories you might hear from folks you work with. I read this article, it came out very recently, about the top 3 regrets people have as they get really old in life. One
Oh,
is that they wish they'd appreciated their health when they had it. Number 2 is they wish they hadn't worked their life away, which we touched on with your dad and your story about your dad.
yeah.
And 3, they regret how they navigated their relationships.
Huh.
And I thought those were very insightful and probably spot on given the research that went into that. Simple but powerful.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think like when you're working in healthcare, definitely other professions as well. It's not like it's isolated to healthcare, but when you see it firsthand and you see like how debilitating, a disease or something can be, a condition or a setback, a neurodegenerative. I mean, yeah, we work with people who have ALS, who have MS, who has Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, after a stroke. It's so in your face that I do think that is one of the beauties about being a healthcare professional. It's one of the hard things as well, but you're just constantly reminded, like, you're not guaranteed tomorrow and you're not guaranteed your health. And it really is like that cliche, like that saying of like, health is the new wealth. Like, it's spot on. I mean, it really is.
I don't know why it's such a forcing mechanism that when you lose it, you start to appreciate it so much more. But
Mhm.
I'm curious how, of all the fields that you shadowed,
Mhm.
why this particular field was the one that you doubled down on and went after, and why this segment of the population.
Yeah. So, first, I would say I kind of took away the things that I wasn't as fond of with the other one. So, the nurse that I shadowed, that was my sister.
Okay.
And this is a shout out to all of the nurses because I left shadowing her and I was like, how? How do you do this? It's insane. Like, I shadowed her for 1 day. She was on the cardiac floor at Barnes, very large hospital in St. Louis, and I was like, "It is incredible what nurses do." I mean, truly, like,
Oh, yeah.
it's I mean, we all know, like, they are not treated how they should be treated. Like, she would go an entire shift, like a 12-hour shift without going to the bathroom. Like, that's not okay.
And is that even biologically or physiologically possible? I don't know.
Right, like,
That's
no,
like
she would
crazy.
just be, like, so dehydrated that she
Yeah.
would, just constantly giving and giving. So, I will say, like, she did an awesome job, like, you know, "This is what I do," and all of that, but I left being like, "Oh my god." Like, that I don't think I could do that day in and day out. That's a testament to all the nurses, truly.
Shout out to my sister who went back to school, became a nurse. So
Yeah, shout out to you, sister newborn for sure. Um, and then the other ones, like I remember the dental hygienist being very kind of like routine. Like someone comes in, you do the thing and they leave, and then there's the next person. And for some people, like that could be like a fantastic way. It's like kind of just check onto the next. But what I loved about OT was that I think the therapeutic use of self is what we call it. So I think that was the thing that was the most meaningful to me is you can use your own powerful sense of self to help motivate these people. Like using things, essentially a therapeutic use of self as like kind of the thing that you can't teach. It's just how you interact with other people. How are you going to motivate someone who just had, a C8 spinal cord injury to muster up the will to try to participate in therapy? I mean, it's so powerful being able to try to channel and adapt to what is going to motivate that individual person. Because
that's interesting. Yeah.
when you have seen, one person with Parkinson's, you've seen one person with Parkinson's. Like each person is so unique and
We're
so
all humans, right? We're all different. We all sort of tick differently in terms of
yes.
what's going to get us up and going.
Yes, and the best therapists, they're the ones that have that strong therapeutic use of self where like they see it. They can adapt and be like, here's what I think this person needs for me to help motivate them in this way because therapy is hard. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times people like they don't want to do it. I mean, yeah, if you have like the perfect patient, you're like, "Oh, that's awesome. You're motivated."
Sure.
But especially in our setting, a lot of them have cognitive deficits that like they don't even know that they have a problem.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
tough.
it's so variable, not just in the conditions that we treat, but obviously just people that being able to use our therapeutic use of self is a very like creative way, navigating like towards the older adult population. I think that's why I've always just really liked the older adult population, just their stories and their wisdom, their background. Like I just genuinely like having discussions with most of them. Um, but, just being able to kind of like tap into how I'm going to motivate them, I think is the most exciting thing that I have found as an OT. And for the older adult population, it's true with peds as well, but for older adult population, we really get to impact these people's lives like truly in probably like their last years of their
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And it's also, it's a ripple effect. Like sometimes it's not even just the patient, most of the time, it's the family. It's how we're supporting them
Yeah. That makes
through
sense.
through the end of their life. So it's a really powerful way to help someone.
Yeah, from the family perspective, I imagine there's some relief there that their loved one is getting the help they need to be the best version of themselves at this stage in life. And then you or your team motivating them, I imagine, starts with, if it's possible, building like a level of connection with the individual and sort of understanding them and finding out the best journey to take them on to get them to as good as they can get at that point in their life.
Yeah, for sure. And like, also respecting their autonomy. Like sometimes it truly is centered around like what are their goals? I mean, because there is a point where it's like, yeah, like you don't really want this and like there aren't long-term goals that you have. And I think the more seasoned that I've become as a therapist is like I can educate and I can tell them the benefits and things that we can work on, but, like, they have that choice, right? Like, if they don't want to, it's like, that's okay too. Like,
Hmm.
they can be I think whenever I was, like, a newer grad, it was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna do this, and, like, here should be
Boom,
the."
boom, boom. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and now I'm like, "Oh, man," like, it's totally up to them, and, like, yes, I'll try as best as I can to motivate, but, like, it's their life, for
Right,
sure.
right.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Which Manning brother will win the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3 on Super Bowl Sunday? Peyton or Eli? Watch the showdown live on Super Bowl Sunday. Plus, new customers bet $5 and get $200 if your bet wins. Only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus vest that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at fanduel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So let's go back. After you find your niche, were you part of another clinic or practice, and then you decided to jump out on your own, or did you just go, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was kind of like the perfect stars aligning type of situation with the COVID lockdown and being dedicated provider at that time. I mean, I knew the executives in the senior living facility that we first started at, and basically they had seen that it could have been done better. Like the therapy could have been better. It was a very large corporation, not like high attention to detail. And so it was just basically proposed like, well, if you're treating well and you have a vision for this, then you could be our preferred provider instead of this large corporation. And so for me, like, I didn't go into OT school thinking that I would be an entrepreneur. Definitely not. It was just like the stars aligning and, going kind of back to the sports and like how influential team sports were for me. I did always like gravitate towards taking a leadership role on those teams. I remember one of my college softball coaches, it was when I was, I think, like a freshman, and she was like, Jordan, you need to realize that you have such a heavy influence on this team. It's like she saw it when I didn't see it. She's like, you are a leader, and whether you see it now or not, that you have the ability to influence this team in a significant way. And so I want it to be a positive way. Let's talk about those things.
Yeah.
So I think that like maybe if it wasn't a stars aligning thing, potentially I could have ventured into doing entrepreneurship just with those kind of tendencies that I gathered like through kind of team sports and leadership type things. But yeah, unexpected to say the least.
It's fascinating you bring that up because I've mentioned to my parents, I've thanked them, and I've mentioned this to other people, that playing both a team sport and an individual sport in my youth had certainly shaped the way I think about the world, the way I interact with people. I think it's important to know winning and losing on your own and winning and losing as a team and how to deal with those things. And it's funny in life how you need to be told you're a leader to like for it to become like a real thing, because you may have some natural gifts to lead, but it needs someone like a coach who seems to be another influential figure in your past to say, you I don't know if you know this, you're a leader and you have the ability to do great things.
Yeah, absolutely. What sports did you play?
I played tennis
Okay.
and I played basketball up
Sweet.
until 11th grade, and then everybody grew and I didn't anymore. So
I stopped growing in like the 7th grade. So are you tennis or are you pickleball now?
Oh no pickleball. It's I've tried to play pickleball and it totally messes up the game. For me at least, I was playing tennis since I was 7 years old and played all through high school. And then took a break and then got back into it again. And then I had my son, and then I've taken another break. So I still very much enjoy the game.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and I'm sure I'll pick it up again when I have some spare time.
Yeah, these seasons of life. Yep.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's the season of life that is not allowing so much for tennis.
Right.
How about yourself? You played softball and what other sports?
And soccer. Yep.
And soccer. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
My son is very into soccer right now and basketball. But
No,
I don't want to burst his bubble about the growth and, I don't think, there's a tall factor in our family genealogy, but
right.
we'll see. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So you started this business
Mhm.
in COVID during all of that, which is interesting because there was a lot of distancing requirements during that period of time. But maybe in certain circumstances, like what you're doing, that is one of the, what do they call it? Exceptions or necessary type of
Yep.
jobs.
Yeah. So I think back on when I founded Aspire, and it really is kind of mind blowing because I was 6 months pregnant as well.
Jeez.
So, yeah, like with my first. So
Why not?
I had, right. Like I essentially was like, creating two babies at once.
Yeah.
So that was pretty wild. Yeah, 6 months pregnant. And that's whenever I started kind of founding the company, doing all of the back work, policies and the procedures and all this stuff. That was like in fall of 2020. And then I had my daughter, who's now 4, in October. And then we started operating February of 21. And the facility that we contracted with first is a very large facility. And so we went from 0 to 13 employees to service this large facility. So we had over 50 evaluations within the first week of even
Wow.
opening Aspire.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and my
Congrats.
daughter, thank you, and my daughter was, like 3.5 months at the time.
So you're like carrying her around, like doing all the things.
It was just wild, like, it really I mean, just thinking back on it, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's a good thing that I, like, didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah, that comment I believe is probably very consistent among the entrepreneurial community. A certain level of naivete or I don't care, I'm just gonna do it anyway kind of mindset. It's you have to have it. It's like you have to be able to think that way.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you'll talk yourself out of it. I mean, so
100%.
I know so many people that have these great ideas and they don't take action because they're overanalyzing and overthinking, and they just talk themselves out of it. Time just destroys their ambitions.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're spot on, and I think that, for me, this opportunity, like, it was fleeting. The timeline, of course, like, I would have loved to have been like, "Hey, let me be a mom for, like, maybe a year, and then I'll start a business."
Sure.
But that's just not life, right? And so I was, like, faced with this, here's this opportunity, you either take it now or it might not ever it probably would never come again. And so that's why it was just like, yeah, this timing is pretty crazy, but leap of faith, let's do it. Whereas maybe some other entrepreneurs, it's not this like finite, either take it or leave it right now, and that window will close, and they just need to pull the trigger and do it because I do feel like it would probably be in my nature that I would analyze, push off
Yeah.
if it wasn't a forced, you got to make this decision.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I read this book called Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and it talks about these windows of opportunity that we think happen infrequently, rarely. And if I recall the book, it's been a while since I read it correctly, he makes the case that these black swan events or these windows of opportunity happen more frequently, but they open and close very fast. To
Oh,
your point that you just
interesting.
shared.
Uh-huh.
And so that window presented itself to you and you ran through it or jumped out of it or whatever the analogy we want to use.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was difficult, not only having a little one alongside of you to make it happen, but just the normal course of business, there's ups, downs, and sideways, trying to figure out all the things. So yeah, talk about that journey.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say like I appreciate that perspective because I feel like there could be, on the flip side is maybe we operate too much out of this like scarcity mindset of like kind of what I was describing. Like if not now, nothing ever will come again that is as great and as cool as awesome. And then you are operating out of this like scarcity type of mindset. So I appreciate kind of the other perspective of like we think that these things, just come and go and it's like a once in a lifetime thing, but maybe not, like maybe that's not it at all. So, anyways, I appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, so then kind of moving a little bit forward, 6 months into the business, I got pregnant with my second. So that was wild. I remember like talking to my husband about it. Like we always knew that we wanted to. And to kinda go, like, 360 again on, like, my dad and just, like, putting family, like, I remember being like, "Okay, maybe we should, like, wait or do this or do that," and I just remember thinking to myself, like, "If this is what I want and I want, like, them to be relatively, like, close in age or whatever, then I'm gonna choose the family piece, and I'll figure it out, like, what the career thing is, but I don't wanna sacrifice what I want, like, my dreams for my family because of my career. Again, I'm kinda glad that I didn't know what I was getting
Yeah.
into because going from 1 to 2 is, like, really hard. And, like, my
That's
daughter.
the understatement of the century.
Yes!
Yeah.
Right, and, like, my daughter, when I got pregnant, like, she was only 6 months old, like, I hadn't even started the toddler phase. If I would've, like, had her as a toddler, I would've been like, "Oh, hell no, I can't have another one."
Ah, amazing.
So, yeah, the first year was really well, not the first year, really every year, and since we've been operating for
Every year is different.
yeah, it's been insane. I kind of envision, like, when you're trying to balance, like, especially as a mother, a father too, but, like, as a mother, I think, like, culturally, we just have these kind of ingrained things.
Mhm.
My dad is very traditionalist, so I grew up with that, and probably not to the extent that I
Yeah,
should have with, like, the gender role type of situation,
sure.
but, like, I feel like I'm juggling, like, trying to juggle constantly, this whole owning a business, having 2 young kids, and it's like, "Okay, I'll have these moments where, like, I got it, like, everything's in balance," and then one thing will tip, and I just feel like I'm constantly trying to, like, get back to equilibrium. It's hard. It's hard, Michael. Like, I'm sure
I
you too.
my sister, who's a nurse, went back to nursing school, and she decided why not be an emergency room nurse. So that's her journey right now in her career path, and she's got 3 little girls. They're not so little anymore, but so she's doing all the juggling. I can't imagine that world. My wife and I have one,
Mhm.
and we feel like sometimes that can be a challenge
Yeah.
for us. So what do you say to all the moms out there that are juggling all the things, the family life, the work stuff, the kids, all the help them with some advice that you want to share?
I just wanna say, like, I I see you. Like, there are other women out there that they they want both, right? Like, they don't wanna have to choose, and the ones that do choose, and they do, say that they go and they want to be a full-time mom, that's incredible. Like, I wanna just be clear on that
Yeah, for
too.
sure.
Like, it is not I
It's not
swear
either or. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not, like, not one is better than the other by any stretch of the imagination, and there are times when I'm staying home with my kids consecutively that I'm like, "Ah, I don't know how full-time stay-at moms do this." So, just to be abundantly clear, like, they're incredible.
Yep.
But I think the thing that I would wanna say is, like, find your community of moms because it can feel very isolated,
Uh-huh.
and you can feel like you're just kind of, like, struggling through and putting your head down and just trying to get through the day, but finding those other moms out there that you can relate to, it just goes so far for your mental health to be able
Yep.
to express, but also listen to what their trials are. I think it really does come down to like community within moms.
Yeah. I imagine it's in some ways a release, right? Like, because you guys, even though you're commiserating together, you can laugh together about the chaos in your life and share advice with each other. And I don't think this maybe applies only to moms. I think anybody who's going through sort of a crazy time in their life, finding that community is super important for all kinds of reasons, mental health, physical health. I mean, you can sort of combine them together, have like a walking group and
Yep.
share your thoughts while you go on a walk outside in nature, which is good on so many fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not isolated to moms by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, this is just mostly my experience, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm very appreciative of all the moms out there and what they do and the things that they balance. As one of the men in the world, I would tell you we think we understand, but we probably don't really understand everything. So let's just do our best to be supportive in any way that we
Oh
can.
God, I love that. No, I love it so much. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, try for anyone, right, with young kids. Like everyone is going to have their own challenges and their own experiences with it. It's the most like probably one of the most important things that you could do like with your life. So, yeah, big stakes.
Big stakes. I will say I've found myself over the years becoming more aware of when I oversubscribe myself to things, and I'm getting older and saying no to more things and being like more intentional about things, which has nothing to do with anybody else or other things out there. We all have, and I've probably said this a few times on the podcast, 168 hours in the week.
Yep.
And we have to use those very strategically. And the strategy gets more complicated as you get older and have family and jobs and all kinds of things. So it's hard to say no to stuff and just do a few things. And there's this weird thing that has taken over everybody to like, let's do as much as
Yep.
possible, as fast as possible. And I think we like are stressing ourselves out. And I haven't come up with the reason for it yet, why we're in that road.
Yeah, I'm super appreciative that you brought that up because, for me, starting a business and starting the family, they happened at the same time. And so
Hmm.
that learning curve for me, when you're just married without kids and you're basically on your own timeline, you're choosing to do all these things. Like like it's your choice, right? Like it's your timeline. If you're busy, it's like because you chose it to be that way. And my husband is also a high achiever as well. And we were always that couple that was like, "Oh, you have this opportunity, level up, do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You got this." And then he's like, "You have this one, level up, you got
Let's go. Yeah.
it." Until it absolutely crumbled. So like that first quarter of the business, so he was working full time, he got an opportunity to teach at the university for the first
Oh,
time.
cool.
So he did that while I was trying to do this business, and I mean, it was like we we learned through failure because we were like, "Absolutely not." Like, we have to now start saying no to things. So I think that is such good advice, and I agree with you, like, we do live in this society where it's like, yeah, say yes, but every time that you say yes, you're saying no to something
Yep.
else. I mean, that's just
Absolutely.
how it is, and it's
Yeah.
like, maybe that's no to, like, your mental health.
Right.
Like, maybe that's what it's gonna be. Maybe you can do all of the things, like, from a career perspective, but then at the end of the day, like, your
You're
mental
burnt out.
health
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, that I think is, fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Jordan, we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to hear more about what is super exciting for your business, growth wise, and where your passion lies, where things are going. Share a little bit more with our audience about Aspire.
Yeah. So Aspire, I mean, it's awesome. Like I'm biased, though like we're a pretty awesome company. And the reason that I think that is because most of healthcare really is large corporations. And I know we talked about nurses being burnt out, but just to shed some light on healthcare in general, but specifically from the therapy perspective, like our therapists are pretty burnt out, like living in a post-COVID era. From a clinical side, I see it, and it's difficult because, you get out from all of these years of schooling, like our PTs, most of our PTs, they have doctorate degrees. So they spent all this time in school. Most of them have lots of student loans to pay for that schooling. And then they get out and then they go work for what they call it is like an outpatient mill, where it is just back to back patients all day. They're overlapping. A tech is getting one patient on something. They're switching over, and they are spreading their therapists so thin. Or a skilled nursing facility where, again, like I've interviewed some therapists that have come from these larger companies, and their productivity is over 100%. Like that means that they have to be billing or treatment over 100% of the time. You can only do that, number one, through groups. You're grouping you're grouping patients, and or you're working off the clock. And so therapists, I will say, in most settings, like they are burnt out because they're seen as just like billable hours, like how quickly, how many patients, go, go, go. And that has left us feeling pretty undervalued. From an OT perspective, we have more people who are leaving the profession, retiring, than there are people who are entering it. All the while, we've baby boomers. Like our need is growing.
Yeah, so demand's going up, but the supply is at best fragmented. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like we're not going to meet the demands.
Yeah.
And then you pair on top of that reimbursement cuts from insurance, like
Right.
Medicare, like defunding of Medicare, like it's only gone down. So we're in this and from a business perspective, it's a very challenging time because even from what the starting wage at what I used to hire a therapist on 4 years ago to what it is now, it's significant. Like the demand is so much greater, and therapists are leaving the field because they're burnt out and they want something different. They want to get out of patient care, and the reimbursement is going down. And so we really need to, like, our healthcare system is, I don't think anyone here,
Could be a little better.
yeah, just a tad, right? Like it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so at Aspire, all this to say is I really, really try to balance all of these competing forces. How do I run a sustainable, scalable business in this atmosphere where the workforce is reducing and the reimbursement for our services is declining? It's challenging, but as a comparison, like our productivity is 82.5%. It's some of the lowest like ever known, really, truly. We have one-on-one treatment sessions. Like those are the things that I take pride in, that it would be so much easier to be like, okay, now our productivity is 90%. Now it's 95%. Like, but I don't want to do that because I know what it's like to be a therapist,
Yeah. You know what that world looks like when you're running at that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that to say, like I love being able to have a company that has these values because it's not common in the landscape that therapists, like their choices essentially. So I would say probably over the past year and a half, we've really stabilized as an organization. So initially, I had 50-50. I had a business partner, but I bought him out about a year and a half ago. And that really helped get the company kind of back on track and where we need to go. So looking forward, we are in a really good position to entertain, potentially another contract with another senior living facility, or maybe even potentially a brick and mortar. We have one that there's just one treatment room in it, but really expanding that size
Okay.
or that aspect of it being a true outpatient where they could come to us and serve not just the older adult population, but younger adults. There's a lot of, I mean, that's the one thing that's great about entrepreneurship is like there's so many like opportunities and like where do we want to put our resources in? So I feel like we're finally in this position. You know, we have 25 employees. We've been running for 4 years. We're solid. We're stable. Where we want to go next.
It's a great spot to be in.
Yeah.
And having the control as the entrepreneur business owner to decide where to go next, I think in the business, as you said, is stable, is a fun spot to be in. Like, where do we want to
Yes.
make our next bet?
Yep.
But you don't have to rush it. I don't know what your financial picture is, if you have investors or anything sort of putting the pressure on, but if not, that's great. Then you can sort
Nope,
of
I don't.
control,
It's,
you can
yeah,
control
just
your destiny that way, and play the longer game. Because investors always want a return on their investment as quickly as
yeah.
possible, so you don't have to worry about that,
Yep.
which is phenomenal.
I appreciate that because, yeah, like going back to your comment of like, it seems like we're just geared to like, okay, and on to the next, and then more, and then this and this. And it's like, there is power in just like stability and optimizing.
Absolutely.
Like that quote that you read on the introduction, like, I can't take any credit. That's from Atomic Habits by James Clear. And so really optimizing on systems and processes, like I love that. I love that stuff. And so sometimes that is a way better move than more volume, another
Right.
site, more, you
Right.
know?
Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love it, Jordan. All right, one question we always like to ask our guests at the end is for anybody who's contemplating a second act, starting their second act, trying something new in life, what parting advice, practical advice do you have for them to just sort of get going?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it
Yeah.
earlier, but I think a very common human experience is imposter syndrome. Probably for a lot of people who are considering a second act like that, I think that kind of implies like this is different, right? Than what you expected. Like you didn't think that you'd be here or that your trajectory could go in this way. And so you might feel some type of way like, I never identify as a business owner. There's no way I could be a business owner, not me. But, really, we all experience imposter syndrome at some level. Some it's more significant than others. Some it actually, debilitates people and they don't actually go and chase their dreams. But we all experience it. And so if that's you and you're considering it and you're nervous, you don't know if you can do it, I think there's a lot of parallels between having a business and being a parent. Like, no one ever feels 100%
Yep.
in becoming a parent. Like, those conditions are never going to be perfect, right? Like, you can try to plan as best you can, and it's similar for potentially your second act. Like, you're gonna do your due diligence, you're gonna weigh out these things before you make your next step, but then at some point, like, you just gotta do it, right? Like, you
Absolutely.
just gotta go. You just gotta trust in yourself and make the leap. That's what it is, it's a leap.
Make the leap of faith. Very sound advice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jordan, for that. As our show is coming to a close and you've shared this wonderful story with our audience, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about your business, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we're on most platforms. So Instagram, it's our handle is We Aspire Together. We're on Facebook, and then our website is also weaspire.net. We also love a good phone call. I'd love to hear from any of you guys out there listening, considering your second act. But yeah, I reach out to us. We'd love to chat.
Awesome. Yep. And we connected on LinkedIn too. I don't know how active you are, but that's another place you can find Jordan as well.
Yes.
Well, Jordan, thanks again so much for coming on the show and doing your first podcast. It's been a lot of fun, the conversation. And I hope that you have continued success in your business. And with that said, I will talk to everybody again soon. Hopefully, John will be able to make the next one.
Thank you so much, Michael. This was incredible. You're extremely easy to talk to, so it's been my pleasure.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballenger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act Movement on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.